The hospital room hums with a sterile, mechanical pulse, a relentless beep slicing through the stillness. Olive Patterson, 24, sits rigid in a chair beside the bed, her dark hair spilling over her shoulders, framing a face tight with quiet grief. Her grandfather, Henry Patterson, 78, lies propped against thin pillows, his once strong frame reduced to a fragile silhouette beneath the crisp, white sheets. His hand, trembling and veined, rests in hers, skin like cracked parchment brushing against her steady grip. The air smells of antiseptic and fading time, heavy with the weight of what's unsaid. Henry's eyes, dimmed by age but sharp with intent, lock onto hers. "Olive," he rasps, his voice a dry whisper, brittle as autumn leaves. "You're the only one I trust." The words hit her like a stone dropped into still water, rippling through her chest. She tightens her hold, feeling the frailty of his bones, the urgency in his grip. Her throat swells, a lump pressing hard against her resolve, but she doesn't look away. He's her rock, the man who taught her to stand when the world pushed her down, and now he's slipping through her fingers. "Don't let them take what I built," he says, each syllable a labored breath carving into her like glass. She nods, though confusion swirls in her mind. Who? What? She doesn't understand, not yet, but the fire in his gaze roots her to the spot. Her pulse thunders, a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. "I won't, Grandpa," she murmurs, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. His lips twitch, a ghost of a smile, and his hand slackens, the fight draining from him. The monitor flatlines, a piercing wail shattering the silence. Olive's breath catches, her world tilting as nurses rush in, their voices a distant hum. She stands, numb, staring at the shell of the man who saw her when no one else did. His words echo, a promise she doesn't yet grasp, but one she'll carry into the chaos ahead. The room is a cavern of oak and shadow, grand and suffocating, its polished walls reflecting the flickering light of a chandelier overhead. Olive sits at the edge of a leather chair, her hands clasped tight, still reeling from Henry's funeral a week ago. Around the long table, her family gathers like vultures, uncles with pinched faces, aunts with pursed lips, board members in crisp suits, their eyes glinting with expectation. At the head, Diane Miller, 50, Olive's mother, stands poised, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun, fingers tightening possessively around her husband Tom Miller's arm. Tom, 52, lounges beside her, his tailored suit screaming confidence, his smirk a quiet weapon. The lawyer, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, clears his throat, his voice slicing through the frigid air. Papers rustle as he begins, but Olive barely hears. Her mind lingers on Henry's final whisper. Then Diane rises, her posture regal, her tone unwavering. "From this moment forward, Tom will be running the company," she declares, as if the words alone rewrite reality. Olive blinks, the statement jolting her back. Tom? Her stepfather, married to Diane less than a year. The man who'd spent months slipping condescension into every conversation, calling her too young, too green, a child playing at grown-up games. No one flinches. Not the uncles, not the aunts, not the board. The silence is complicit, thick with an unspoken agreement, as if this was scripted long before Henry's last breath. Olive's stomach twists, but before she can process it, the lawyer adjusts his glasses, his voice calm, precise. According to Mr. Patterson's will, his entire estate, including all controlling shares in Patterson Industries, is to be inherited by his granddaughter, Olive Patterson. The room freezes, a collective breath held, then shattered. Diane's face twists, her mask of certainty cracking into sharp, brittle rage. "That must be a mistake," she snaps, her voice a whip. "He meant to leave it to me." The lawyer doesn't blink. "I assure you, there is no mistake. Olive Patterson is the sole heir, effective immediately. She owns everything." A beat of absolute silence, then Tom reacts, a soft chuckle, blooming into a full, bemused laugh. He turns to Olive, shaking his head, like she's a toddler with a toy crown. "Sweetheart, come on," he says, his tone thick with pity. "Running a business isn't like some school project. It takes real experience." Olive's jaw tightens, her pulse hammering, but she doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. Across the table, Diane's expression darkens, shifting from disbelief to something colder, uglier, rage. The lawyer straightens his papers, unfazed. Mr. Patterson was explicit. The estate, the home, the company, all to Olive. Every gaze locks onto her, their shock a tangible weight pressing in. She meets it, unbowed, the echo of Henry's trust steadying her spine. This isn't just a will, it's a declaration, and she's only beginning to feel its power. The air thickens, heavy with barely restrained fury, as the lawyer's words settle like a bombshell. Diane sits rigid, her hands curling into fists, her lips a bloodless line holding back a scream. Tom stands beside her, his once assured grin faltering, his eyes flicking between Olive and the lawyer like a cornered animal. Olive leans back, her arms crossed, watching them unravel faster than she'd expected. The room's grandeur, polished oak, towering windows, feels smaller now, dwarfed by the storm brewing within it. "You're joking," Diane finally spits, her voice a seething whisper, sharp as glass. "Dad would never do this. He'd never leave you in charge over me." Olive tilts her head, a slow smile tugging at her lips before she can stop it. She lets out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "You might want to take another look at that will, Mom," she says, her tone casual but cutting. "I have a feeling there's more bad news waiting for you." Diane's face twitches, the reality striking her like a physical blow. "If that's how it is," she hisses, lifting her chin, her eyes void of warmth, "then get out. Leave our house, now." The command hangs, absurd and brittle. Olive exhales, slowly, fighting the laugh threatening to spill. Had she really just tried to kick her out of her own home? "Mom," she says, gesturing around the grand estate, her voice steady, amused. "I think you're confused. This house, it's mine now. Grandpa left it to me." A muscle in Diane's jaw clenches, her composure fraying. Tom steps in, forcing a smile, his voice dripping with feigned concern. "Olive, sweetheart, you're young. Running a company this size, it's not just about inheritance, it's about responsibility." There it is, their real play, cloaked in care. Olive levels him with a look, her defiance blooming. "Let me get this straight," she says, her tone calm but razor-edged. "The moment you realized the company wasn't yours, Mom tried to throw me out of my own home, and now you think I'll just hand it over?" Tom's smile darkens, but he stays silent. Diane's hands tremble, her world cracking beneath her. Olive rises, her gaze unwavering. "I expected a fight," she says softly, "but I didn't expect you to lose this fast." She turns, leaving them in the wreckage of their assumptions, Henry's trust a shield at her back. The grand room remains a battlefield of silence, the air thick with Diane's barely restrained fury and Tom's faltering charm. Olive stands at its edge, her arms still crossed, her pulse steady despite the storm of eyes boring into her. The lawyer, unruffled, adjusts his glasses, with practiced calm, his fingers brushing a sealed envelope pulled from his briefcase. "Mr. Patterson left a letter," he announces, his voice smooth as polished stone, "to be read in the event of any confusion." Diane shifts uneasily, her chair creaking under her rigid frame, while Tom's smirk fades, his hands clenching at his sides. The lawyer unfolds the paper, its crisp edges whispering against the silence, and begins. "Olive," he reads, Henry's words echoing through the room like a distant thunderclap. "If you're hearing this, it means I'm gone, and by now I'm sure your mother is outraged. She'll call it unfair, claim she was supposed to inherit everything. But the truth is, she lost that right long ago." Olive's breath catches, her grandfather's voice alive in the lines, cutting through her grief. Diane's lips press into a hard line, her face unreadable, though her trembling hands betray her. She always thought money meant power, the lawyer continues, but she never understood that power requires responsibility. I gave her chance after chance to prove herself worthy of Patterson Industries. Instead, she chose luxury over leadership, selfishness over sacrifice. The words sting, a quiet indictment, and Olive glances at her mother, seeing the truth settle like ash. As for Tom, the letter presses on. If he's there, I imagine he's hiding his true colors, but I know what he is. A leech, a man who saw an opportunity in my daughter's bank account and took it. I won't let my life's work fall into his hands. Tom's face flushes beet red, his rage simmering beneath a thin veneer of control. Olive, you are different, Henry's letter insists, each syllable carving deeper into her chest. You never asked for anything, and that's exactly why I chose you. You worked for it, took the time to learn the business. Not as a bank account, but as a legacy. Her eyes sting, tears threatening to spill as memories flood back. Summers at Henry's side, notebooks filled with scribbled lessons while Diane dismissed her as a dreamer. I know this won't be easy, the lawyer reads on, but don't forget, I didn't leave you defenseless. I left you everything you need to win. The lawyer folds the letter with quiet precision, slipping it back into the envelope as silence blankets the room. Diane hisses, "This is ridiculous. He was old, sick, he wasn't thinking straight." The lawyer meets her glare, unflinching. "Mr. Patterson revised his will 3 months ago," he says smoothly. "He was of sound mind, and, legally, there's nothing you can do." Olive exhales, Henry's faith a lifeline threading through her veins, anchoring her against the fury across the table. Later that day, Olive steps into a sleek conference room within Patterson Industries, its glass walls framing a city skyline bruised with dusk. The space feels like a cage, the air heavy with Tom's false ease as he sinks into a chair, lounging as if he owns it. Diane stands beside him, arms crossed tight over her chest, her gaze predatory, sizing Olive up like prey. They'd cornered her outside the building, their faces composed, their storm of rage hidden behind smooth masks. "We need to talk," Diane had said, her tone eerily calm. "Just the 3 of us." Against her better judgment, Olive agreed, curiosity outweighing caution. "You're in over your head, Olive," Diane begins, her voice softer now, almost gentle, a velvet glove over a steel fist. "Grandpa put an impossible burden on you. It's unfair to expect you to run a billion-dollar empire at your age." Olive smirks, leaning back in her chair, her fingers tapping the table's edge. "And you think Tom should run it instead?" she asks, her tone dry, cutting through the pretense. Diane doesn't hesitate. "Yes," she says firmly. "At least for now. He has experience. You could learn from him." Tom leans in, his polished smile firmly in place, his voice dripping with insincere warmth. "Not exactly," he says smoothly. "We're proposing a partnership. You'll still be the face of the company, still have the title, but I'll handle the day-to-day, the real work. No board meetings, no tough decisions. You can just enjoy your life." Olive's eyebrow arches, her stomach twisting as the plan unfolds. "You want me to be a figurehead," she states, her words flat, unyielding. Diane nods, pressing the lie further. "It's the best arrangement. The board will feel secure, and you won't have to deal with the stress of making mistakes." There it is, the manipulation, veiled insults wrapped in fake concern, fear tactics dressed as wisdom. "One wrong decision," Diane adds, her voice tightening, "and you could destroy everything your grandfather built." Tom's smile widens, sensing victory. "We'd transfer a percentage of the revenue to your account every month," he offers, as if dangling a prize. "You'd never worry about money. Travel, relax, do whatever makes you happy." Olive lets the silence stretch, her gaze flicking between them, watching their conviction harden. They actually believe she'll fold, hand over her legacy, and let them pull the strings. And if I say no? She asks, her voice low, deliberate. Diane's face darkens, her mask slipping. Don't be reckless, Olive, she warns, her tone measured but sharp. You'll make enemies. The board doesn't trust you. Shareholders will scrutinize every move. If you refuse us, we won't shield you from the pressure. Tom smirks, not denying it, his silence a threat. Olive rises, her resolve a steel thread through her spine. Thanks for the offer, she says, her voice unwavering, but I'll take my chances. Diane shoots up, grabbing Olive's wrist, her grip desperate. You have no idea how this world works, she hisses. Grandpa put a target on your back. Olive holds her gaze unflinching. No, Mom, she says quietly, pulling free. I needed you to believe in me once. You didn't. Now, I don't need you at all. She turns, walking out, leaving their plan in tatters. Their desperation clings to the air, a warning of the fight still to come. 2 days later, Olive steps into the boardroom of Patterson Industries, its long mahogany table gleaming under harsh lights, the air pulsing with quiet hostility. She takes her seat at the head, her hands resting calmly despite the storm brewing inside. The board members, mostly men in their 50s and 60s, veterans of Henry's era, stare at her with barely concealed skepticism, their postures stiff, their eyes cold. James Carter, 58, leans forward, his expression tight, his voice heavy with expectation. Well, before we begin, he says, pausing for effect, we need to address the elephant in the room. Olive keeps her face composed, her fingers curling slightly. And what's that, Mr. Carter? She asks, her tone even, probing. He hesitates, exchanging a knowing glance with the others, then straightens. Your grandfather was brilliant, but let's be honest. Handing you the company was hasty. You lack experience, and that concerns us. The words land like a slap, sharp and deliberate, though she'd braced for resistance. Across the table, another member, barely looking up from his phone, exhales. The media's already on this. Her stomach tightens as she discreetly pulls her phone from her pocket, the screen lighting up with headlines that hit like a sledgehammer. Billion-dollar gamble. Can Olive Patterson keep Patterson Industries afloat? Experts predict collapse under inexperienced CEO. This isn't random, it's sabotage, orchestrated and precise. Her PR team's frantic messages flood in, investors panicking, stocks dipping, and then an email pings, a request for a leadership vote. Diane and Tom's hands are all over it, their move to push her out before she can even fight back. The room blurs for a moment, the weight of their doubt pressing in, but Olive steadies herself, her jaw clenching. She should panic, should feel overwhelmed. Instead, a slow smile curves her lips, sharp and knowing. She'd been waiting for this, expecting their claws to come out. They think she's a deer in headlights, but Henry didn't raise a quitter. She slips her phone back into her pocket, her mind already racing, and dials a number as the meeting ends. It rings twice before Ethan Brooks, 55, answers, his smooth voice laced with amusement. I was wondering when you'd call. I need your help, she says, exhaling, her voice firm despite the chaos. The board's voting in 2 days, and the media's a circus. Ethan hums, unfazed. Classic corporate betrayal. Let's turn it around. Olive nods to herself, Henry's trust burning in her chest. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of her counterstrike. That night, Olive steps into Ethan Brooks' office, a sleek war room of glass and steel perched high above the city, its lights glinting like a battlefield at dusk. Ethan, 55, leans against his desk, his silver hair catching the glow, his sharp eyes gleaming with the thrill of a fight. She'd called him from the boardroom's wreckage, her voice steady despite the media storm and the looming vote. Now, standing here, she shakes his hand, her grip firm, her resolve a quiet fire stoked by Henry's trust. The ambush had been a blow, but she's not broken, not yet. I assume this is about the media circus, Ethan says, his voice smooth, amusement lacing the edges. Olive nods, her jaw tight. And the board. They're holding a vote in 2 days. He hums, crossing his arms, unfazed by the stakes. Classic corporate betrayal. Well, Olive, it's time we remind them why Henry chose you. She exhales, the weight of his confidence easing her shoulders, and they set to work, their plan unfolding like a chessboard flipped in her favor. Step 1, the board. Ethan's contacts, key investors still loyal to Henry, will publicly endorse her, bolstering her legitimacy. Step 2, the media. She'll give an exclusive interview, her qualifications and Henry's reasoning laid bare, turning the narrative from collapse to comeback. Step 3, the sabotage. Ethan's network can trace the leaks, and if Diane and Tom are behind them, as she suspects, they'll expose it to the world. Proof is our weapon, he says, sliding a folder across the desk, his grin sharp. Let's bury them with it. By midnight, the plan is airtight, a counterstrike Henry would have applauded. Olive stands at the window, the city sprawling below, her reflection a shadow against the glass. The headlines shift as they speak. CEO Olive Patterson breaks. Silence, exclusive airs tonight, and stocks stabilize, investors rallying behind her name. She turns to Ethan, her voice low, grateful. Thank you. He shrugs, his smirk satisfied. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we see their faces. She smiles, small but fierce, ready to reclaim what's hers. The morning of the vote dawns crisp and unrelenting, Patterson Industries' towering glass facade looming like a fortress Olive must defend. She stands outside, her breath fogging in the cool air, her dark coat a shield against the storm she's about to face. Inside, the boardroom buzzes, every seat filled with power brokers, men and women who'd sworn loyalty to Henry, now poised to judge her worth. James Carter sits at the head of the mahogany table, his tight expression a mask of authority, his gavel poised. We'll begin with a vote, he announces, his voice cold, final. Before he can continue, the door swings open, a gust of tension sweeping in with Diane and Tom. They stride forward, right on cue, their faces rehearsed. Diane's icy composure, Tom's oozing charm. Tom clears his throat, pacing the room like a politician mid-campaign, his posture radiating control. Let's be honest, he says, flashing a well-practiced smile. Running a billion-dollar empire requires experience. I have the vision this company needs. I propose I take over as CEO, with Olive as the public face. He sits, his smirk unmistakable, as if the decision's already his. Olive lets the silence stretch, watching him bask in his delusion, her hands resting calmly on the table. Then she speaks, her voice cutting through the stillness, sharp as a blade. That's interesting, Tom, because I remember you saying something very different behind closed doors. His face twitches, a crack in his facade. Excuse me? He snaps, leaning forward. She glances at Ethan, seated beside her, his nod subtle but loaded. Without a word, he slides a thick folder across the table, its pages rustling like a battle cry. Over the past week, Olive states, her tone steady, unyielding, Tom and Diane have been sabotaging my leadership. They didn't stop at leaking false press. They tried to weaken Patterson Industries itself. The board members flip through the documents, emails, texts, call transcripts, each line a nail in Tom's coffin. James's expression darkens, his fingers tightening on the pages. What is this? He demands. Ethan leans in, his voice smooth, lethal. Proof. Proof that Tom never intended to save this company. He intended to exploit it. Tom's face burns red, his charm crumbling. This is outrageous, he growls. Owls. You can't prove. Olive cuts him off, her voice rising, precise. Oh, but we can. We traced the media leaks. The source? A private email registered under your name, Tom. The room erupts in murmurs, a tide turning against him. Diane shoots to her feet, her glare sharp enough to cut glass. Olive, that's enough, she snaps, her voice high with desperation. You're just trying to make him look bad because you're scared. Olive smiles, slow and knowing, her eyes locked on her mother's. I don't have to make him look bad, Mom. He did that all on his own. Diane opens her mouth, but James slams his hand on the table, silencing her. That's enough, he barks, his tone final, his gaze shifting to Tom with disgust. You weren't protecting this company. You were working against it. That disqualifies you. Tom stiffens, panic flashing in his eyes, the game slipping through his fingers. It's time to vote, James declares, his voice a hammer striking stone. Hands rise one by one, unanimous in Olive's favor. She exhales, her chest lighter, the weight of doubt lifting. Security escorts Tom out, his protest fading down the hall. Diane follows, humiliated, hissing her final venom. You'll regret this. Olive doesn't respond, her silence a victory louder than words. She's won. Not just the company, but her place. 1 year later, Olive, now 25, stands behind a podium in a packed auditorium, the air alive with the hum of anticipation. Patterson Industries' logo gleams on the screen behind her, a testament to her reign, its glass tower a beacon of her triumph. The crowd, investors, employees, press, leans forward, their applause a roaring tide as she steps to the mic. Her dark hair is swept back, her posture steady, her voice strong, unshaken. When my grandfather chose me to lead Patterson Industries, she begins, her words ringing clear, people doubted me. The headline flashes in her mind, Olive Patterson, the CEO who proved them wrong, a badge earned through fire. They saw my age, not my will, she continues, her gaze sweeping the room, meeting every eye. But what they didn't realize is that success isn't about years. It's about preparation, perseverance, and the ability to rise when they expect you to fall. The crowd erupts again, their cheers a wave crashing over her. But she stands firm, Henry's trust pulsing in her veins. She'd faced the board's skepticism, Diane's betrayal, Tom's sabotage, each blow a forge that tempered her into this moment. That night, in Ethan's office, the plan they'd built had held, turning leaks into leverage, doubt into dominance. Now, Patterson Industries thrives under her hand, its stock soaring, its legacy hers to shape. She thinks of Henry, his frail fingers in hers, his whispered faith. He'd seen her when no one else had, and she'd honored that gift, building something not just for him, but for herself. Olive steps back, the applause fading into a hum as she turns from the podium, her reflection catching in the glass wall behind. She's not just his heir, she's her own legend now, a woman who took a target on her back and turned it into a crown. Ethan's words echo from that victory night. Your grandfather would be proud. She smiles to herself, small but fierce, knowing it's true. The fight was brutal, the victory hard won, but standing here, she regrets nothing, except, perhaps, ever doubting she could win.